All right, so I woke up with, it's probably like 2:30, about an hour before I normally get up, just laying in bed, and for whatever reason I woke up with the phrase, the great inversion, in my head. So real quick, 2:30 in the morning, I opened my phone just to get a quick search page going so I could reference this later when I'm ready to go to work. I typed in, define the esoteric symbolism of inversion. So what that word inversion means is to invert, right? You take something and invert it. So the most notable symbol that people will be familiar with is an upside down cross. So if Christianity is a symbol of God, then an inverted cross would be the symbol of the devil. Okay, so let's take that frame of reference as an example as to what I'm going to talk about. So I had heard this phrase a while ago. I don't remember who said it or where it came from, but I heard the phrase the great inversion being used, as in like society was going to go through a great inversion. And I see that happening. This has happened before. It's not unique to humanity or society. This has happened. I think the most recent example of this inversion is maybe, let's go back to the 60s, right? Woodstock, that whole generation, and what it brought to the table in terms of throwing off the social order. If you look up the symbolism of inversion in terms of societal impact, that's what it means. It means an inverting of all things normal and acceptable in society. It's throwing off social norms. If you keep reading, it uses the word subversion too, which is kind of interesting, because to subvert something it's like a sneaky way of introducing change. So how is this playing out that I see now? Well, most notably, and I hate having to keep talking about this group, is the Alphabet Club. The LGBTQIA plus, whatever other symbols they're going to eventually throw behind that. I'm sure AI will make an appearance in that somehow, right? Robotics and AI, sentient robots, right? They'll want to be represented, or humans will want them to be represented. Anyway, that's another topic. But in terms of inversion, let's just take the most recent event, the halftime show featuring Bad Bunny. Now remember, inversion, taking something that was and now making it isn't, right? Good is now bad, bad is now good. That's an inversion. So Super Bowl and the Bad Bunny performance. Let's look at the icon of the name Bad Bunny, right? The title, Bad Bunny. It's cute, right? Bunnies are cute, but he's a little bit bad, so he's got a bit of an edge to him too. He's a bad bunny. Okay? Have we seen a character like this before in pop culture? I think we have. I think the most notable pop culture icon previous to Bad Bunny, and funny how the names are very similar, is Snoop Dogg, right? Snoop, everybody right away, at least for my generation, would associate the name Snoop with Snoopy, right? Charlie Brown, cute little dog laying on his doghouse. Snoop, and then dog, right? Snoop Dogg. How cute. Was the actual person of Snoop Dogg cute? No. He's a violent gang member. Went on trial for murder. prolific cannabis smoker, right? Unapologetically. That's fine. Good for him. No apologies. He's just being him. But that was frowned upon in society for a very long time, right? Right, the 60s, a lot of drug use, not openly, but it was around and a little bit accepted. But then there was real big pushback going through the 70s, late 70s into the 80s, right? With the DARE program and all this stuff, and just say no to drugs. There was a big push to just don't do that. Well, then all that fell away come the mid to late 90s and the introduction of Snoop Dogg. Right? All of a sudden, you're finding these. You would never, for a while, talking about smoking pot in music, that through the 80s, you never heard any of that. Right? Not even in hip hop, like Run DMC, maybe the quickest veiled reference to it. Never just outright talking about it. So now it's being celebrated through the pop culture icon of Snoop Dogg. See? Something bad made into something good. Another inversion. Okay, so that's Snoop Dogg. Let's move it back to Bad Bunny. Snoop Dogg, Bad Bunny. See the similarities? Pretty similar. So now they're doing something similar with Bad Bunny. And with him, it has nothing to do with cannabis. With him, there's a dual purpose for Bad Bunny. First of all, he's Puerto Rican. So he falls into this interesting little category of, technically he's an American, because Puerto Rico is an American territory. So Bad Bunny has American citizenship, but he doesn't really identify as American. He identifies as Puerto Rican, which means he identifies as Latin first, Puerto Rican first. And that conveniently coincides with all the issues America's having right now at the southern border, and ICE, and all these, and people being deported, and the pushback that's popping up around that. Interesting, right? Bad Bunny has another social spin that makes him relevant for the moment. Bad Bunny likes to cross-dress. He wears dresses, skirts, which also speaks deeply to the inversion of what was normally associated with being a male. Dresses and skirts have traditionally been the garb of a woman. Now I know some people right now are probably like, oh no, that's not true. Look at Catholic priests. They've been wearing those long black kind of outfits for a while. That's kind of like a dress. They'll point to that as their excuse. No, not good enough. That's just the traditional garb of a clergyman. Right? It's just more of a long robe, not a dress. People like Bad Bunny are wearing dresses in a time where we're also allowing men into the women's bathroom. There's another inversion. See? Something that was, now isn't. And it's not necessary, you don't even have to put it in the context of something bad is now good, or something good is now bad. It could be as simple as something abnormal is now normal. That's an inversion. So what they're doing is they are slowly priming your subconscious to accept the inversion. If you look that up in your little AI, tell it to define. Type in exactly this. Define the esoteric symbolism of inversion. Watch all the stuff it'll tell you and how it's been used. It's very interesting. Somebody walking on the freeway. Why do people keep doing this? So that's what I see. And the younger generation, they're not seeing it. The younger generation and the generations older than me, the boomers, they're not really seeing it either. Like my mom, I had to bring it up because I already knew where her mind was. It's so predictable. Happened to ask, did you see the halftime show? Oh, I absolutely love Bad Bunny, she says. So wild. There's nothing about Bad Bunny she should like. First of all, it's way outside her generation. But see how she likes it? Younger generation too. So back to the inversion. What else does Bad Bunny do? Or people like Bad Bunny, who like the symbol of a man in a dress. What is that actually? A man in a dress is a symbol of emasculation. They're trying to emasculate all the men, to make them less masculine. That's what that word means. To demasculate. One of those is the correct version of that word. That's what they want. They're trying to make women more manly through the prism of feminism, and they're trying to make men less masculine through the prism of woke LGBTQIA plus ideology. I hate that term, woke. But that's what they use. That's another inversion, the use of that word, woke. The word woke is the past tense of awake. See, right now, what we should have been going through was a great awakening, right? People are awaking to the truth of what is. There's pushback against that. They don't want people awake. They want people woke, right? They think they're awake, but their thinking is in the past, because technically, woke is the past tense of awake. He woke up. Awake is present tense. I am awake. That's another inversion. Taking a word, removing its literal definition and replacing it with another. You're inverting what that term means. This is everywhere. So this is what I woke up thinking about this morning. So I thought I'd do a little video on it. Another thought that buttressed up against this as I was laying there in my bed, I was thinking about Bad Bunny, how that guy likes to wear dresses. And I started to wonder, immediately the question hit me. Why is it that that's what's being pushed out into the forefront of this current pop culture, men in dresses? There's an equal opposite to that. Women women in men's suits, or women in a man's outfit, however you want to look at that. Why isn't that being championed? Like the men in the dresses. And that's when it went back to, they don't want men to be men. They want men to be less manly. Hence, man in a dress. And they have all the women on board with that. And all the feminized men are on board with that too. But the symbol of a woman trying to be a man is something much more different. Right? Even a man trying to be a woman requires a certain level of beautification, if you want to use that word, right? In order to look like a woman, you have to grow your hair out. Right? You have to throw on a pretty dress. But in order for a woman to become a man, she has to start removing things No long hair. Right? Double mastectomy. That's wild. Self-mutilation just to become a man. Man doesn't have to do that to become a woman. It's perfectly acceptable for a man to pretend to be a woman, still have a penis. Very few men go through the surgery required it takes to remove a penis. That is intensive, and that is not as simple as removing breasts. You're tinkering with a whole nother set of biological parts. That's way more complicated than breasts. The penis, you gotta reroute some tubing. There's all kinds of things going into that. Get around this guy. So yeah, this is me. 2:30 in the morning, about an hour before I have to wake up. I should wake up with this stuff in my head. I wish I was like you guys, like all the normies. It must be so easy to go through life not really caring about this stuff, right? You get to talk about whatever, you know, guys and your sports and your women with your Netflix series or whatever. But no, I wake up thinking about the symbolism of Bad Bunny, how similar he is to Snoop Dogg, and how relevant he is to the social change that they want to see in the world right now, at least in America. So we're so egocentric and self-centered in America. We think what's going on over here with that group, the LGBT, we think that's happening everywhere in the world. Probably it's not. Maybe in the Western light countries, maybe Europe, maybe like England. But I bet if you were to look it up, the percentage of people that identify with that group, that acronym, I bet it starts to dwindle when you get to the Middle Eastern countries and the Asian countries. They ain't doing this. Not all out in the open with pride. I bet most people don't even know. But pride, if I remember correctly, pride is part of the there's like a number of deadly sins, 7 deadly sins, whatever. I think it's in the Bible actually. I think pride's one of them. Never seek to be proud. Proud through a position of humility. Like I'm humbly proud, you know. I'm proud that I was able to do this because God enabled me to do this. God empowered me to do this. That's a form of humble pride. This is not me. I do this because God has allowed me to do this. That's healthy pride. But when it's ego-centered pride, I'm the man. I did this. None of this could have been done without me. That's what's toxic about pride. And I believe pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. I believe it's in the Bible, with envy and wrath and sloth and all those. Watch the movie 7. I believe pride is one of those. That was a great movie, by the way. But yeah, nothing good about pride. Nothing cute about a man in a dress. And all you women out there who aren't part of the alphabet club and do want children, all those women that like wearing dresses and who are attracted to men, imagine you want to come together with a man one day and have a child. Imagine if you have a little boy. He wants to wear dresses. I'm sure you'll love him just the same. But somewhere in the back of your mind, it'll always hurt you. Or your little girl, right? You always wanted a little girl as a mother. You give birth to a little girl. Right? You have dreams of Barbies and all the little girl things. Then adolescence comes around. And they want to dress like a boy. And then later adulthood comes around. And they want a double mastectomy. That's tough. As a parent, you will always love your child no matter what. But it will always hurt you knowing that this is the road that they are on. Right? Because a woman who wants to be a man, they'll never know what it's like to have a child. Because, to be honest, they'll never want to have one. Men don't have children. Men don't get pregnant. As much as the Alphabet Club wants the world to believe this, it's just not the way it is. That's just another inversion. Oh, men can get pregnant. Nope. Doesn't happen. Men can't get pregnant and women can't impregnate a man. This is all part of the great inversion. There's a Latin term for inversion, for the symbolic, the esoteric symbolism of inversion. I forget what the Latin term is. It's like mundus. I forget what it is, but if you look it up, the English translation of that Latin term means a world upside down. That's what that means. Pretty wild. And like I said, this is part of human development. This happens from time to time. I think maybe, I don't know, let's call it every other generation, towards the end of every other generation. So let's say every 100 years. Let's be generous. Every 100 years, the generation wants to throw off the shackles that it perceives the generation before it clamping them down with. And there's a healthy way to do this, but the world wants to take advantage of this phenomenon, and it wants to insert unhealthy attributes to this inversion. That's why you have to be careful when it comes to change, when it comes to moments of social widespread change, especially when it comes to the tearing down of something. Because you can't just tear down something. It has to be replaced by something else. Once you tear something down, it creates an energetic vacuum, which must be filled. That's just the way all this works. Nature abhors a vacuum. It will fill it with something. And if you're not careful with what that something is, and somebody's a little bit more careful with what they want that vacuum to be filled with, you can inadvertently fill that with something toxic, like LGBTQ ideology, right? A woman is now a man. See, the way I was brought up, the idea of a goddess was very important, right? A lot of the major gods that were worshipped were women, right? That's how I treat my woman, like a goddess. She's my queen. I revere her. I will put her up on that pedestal. Now, a lot of you egocentric, fragile men out there will be like, oh, simp. Nothing to do with that. Just as manly as you, and I'll knock your teeth out for even saying that, just to show you. What it means is I respect a woman to the degree that I'll treat her like the goddess she is. And in return, she treats me like a god. Not in a blasphemous way, just symbolically, in the context of a man-woman relationship. Of course she knows I'm not God. Of course I know she's not God. But I will treat her with a certain level of reverence, approaching that. I think that's a respectful thing to do. And I think that's something that got lost along the way, intentionally. I think there's an intentional wedge being driven between men and women. It's not an accident that men and women are having a hard time getting along right now. Mostly, it's in the demographic of society that doesn't know God. Like, that doesn't have a real strong spiritual foundation rooted in some sort of religion. You know, there are attributes about religion that could be toxic, but those are mostly the extremes of the religion. You know, the everyday Sunday school child, the average Christian, they're good people. It's the extremists that everybody wants to point to and say, look, Christians are terrible. No, that's a toxic Christian. Or that's a toxic, I don't know, what are the other ones? Christian, Catholicism, Buddhism, Islam. It's the extremists of all those groups that give a bad name to those groups. But on the whole, they're good people. But yeah, they want to invert that. No, let's take the extreme and make a blanket statement image for everybody's mind to capture and hold on to. That's how they want to destroy religion. By making you believe the extremes are the norm. There's another inversion. The extremes are never the norm. That's why they're the extremes. Right? And the group of people that would like to see all these structures be torn down, they adhere to an ideology that I've seen a symbol of a group that worships an icon known as Baphomet. If you know who Baphomet is, it's a it's an amalgamation of a bunch of different forms put into one. It's like the head of a goat, right? On top of the upper body of a woman. But then I think the bottom half is maybe masculine. And normally it has its hands in the symbol of as above, so below. You see one arm up with two fingers, and the other arm's down with the fingers pointing down. That's as above, so below. Which in and of itself is a very powerful formula to use to see through all the BS. Right? How I use as above, so below is, as in the mind, so in the body. As you are mentally, you will show that to me physically. That's as above, so below. But it can also be used in nefarious ways, especially if you want to invert the mentality of society in very subversive ways. Example, a man in a dress. Let's take what was above and move it to what was below. And let's take what was below and move it to what was above. It's all symbolic, used in a dark way. See, all this information, all this knowledge, it's double-edged, right? can be used for good and it can be used for bad. Like fire. I can use fire to cook a meal, right? To heat my home, to keep, say you're out in the wilderness, to keep you alive during the cold. You can use a fire. Very useful, very good thing to have control over. You can also use a fire to burn someone to the ground, to burn their house down. I could set someone on fire using fire. The exact same element used in a different way. That's how all this knowledge is. There's nothing evil about knowledge. It's all in how you use it, or how you're taught to use it. So be careful with the knowledge you come across, and be careful how you're taught to perceive the knowledge. Like a man in a dress. That's okay, he's expressing himself. Careful with that. Where does that go? Because now you've just minimized what a woman is. And especially when it comes to that group, you see the lopsidedness of the dynamic. Especially, and it's nothing more glaringly obvious than when you see men in women's sports. See, if all of this was equal, fair, and okay for men to be women and women to be men, then across the board on all levels, you would see the equality of it. But it doesn't play out that way. Case in point, a man in women's sports. A man who just says they're a woman and is allowed to compete against real biological women will step into that arena no matter what it is and dominate. The opposite is absolutely impossible. There are no women that can identify as men, enter into the NFL, and dominate. It can't happen. That's how you know there's something wrong here. Something's off. You've been sold a bad bill of goods. Right? Another example, right? A man can just throw on a dress. Simple as that. And it's celebrated. Meanwhile, a woman has to cut her beautiful hair and get a double mastectomy. She has to mutilate her body. Something's wrong here. Something's off. It's not equal. It's not fair. So it's not right. That's how I use as above, so below. It's got to be fair and balanced. Otherwise, something's off. Well, I have reached my destination. It's enough of my dark rambling for the day. I can't help it. I woke up talking about this stuff. How can I not just get it out in a video on the way to work? Now I have to go drive all these people nuts that I work with. I know they get tired of me. But one day they'll see I'm not that far off. Alright. So, be careful of the inversion. Always err on the side of light. You have to, in order to expose darkness, you kind of have to mingle with it a bit. So be careful with that overtaking you. Right? So I have to be careful with that, not to get too black-pilled. When you expose darkness, you tend to get a little dark yourself. That's why my girlfriend says all my videos is so dark. It's got to be this way for now. Until I see this pendulum swing a little bit closer to the normal dead center. Right now it's flailing back and forth between the extremes. But when this energy starts to level out, hopefully things will come back to a more natural order. If it doesn't, if the new normal is men in dresses, we didn't make it. So everybody out there, Do good, be good, spread light. Let's go to work.